Hello and welcome to the Business of Meetings podcast. I'm Eric Rosenberg, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking with Melissa Majors. You will hear a very bright person focused on strategy, inclusiveness, great tips as well from someone who had an amazing career in large organization in different fields and decided to start her own business. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to talk with Melissa Majors. Hello, Melissa. How are you?
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction.
Thank you. Well, you deserve it.
Thank you.
So you and I met when you were working at MPI.
Mm-hmm.
And your field of expertise is very broad, but you decided to focus on strategic planning, on inclusiveness. But first of all, you mentioned in your bio that you're creating brain-friendly information. So if I can understand, I believe anybody can understand. So brain-friendly information.
Well, it's important. So I've spent majority of my career managing education organizations across a variety of industries, from financial services to technology, nonprofit associations, and then professional services. And so I realized for a long time that a lot of the training that my team and I were providing weren't making a bit of difference. Because our audiences, they seemed like they were engaged and their eyes were open, they seemed like they were paying attention, but inside their brains were completely unplugged. And so I realized that if I was going to be good at educating others, I needed to understand how the brain was wired to learn and pay attention. And so I've been studying neuroscience for years to really master how to deliver presentations in a brain-friendly way that allow people to remember what you say and then apply the information that's shared. So that's where brain-friendly comes from.
That's awesome. So it is two-part in what you said. The first one is the delivery and how to make sure that people are listening and absorbing information. And the second part is that they are executing on the information they receive. So how can you measure that? How would you measure that in the various organizations you're working for?
Well, there's many ways that you can measure it, but one thing is the forget factor. So think about our industry. I mean, I'm going to drop a dirty little secret about the events industry here on your podcast.
Okay.
So just keep it between us. But you think about all the events that we go to, and you spend 3 to 4 days getting exposed to these brilliant ideas. And as soon as you get back, escalation hits, you forget 90% of them. Isn't that a shame? It's tragic.
It's true.
It's true because we are often overloaded with information that we're not able to remember and then apply. And so the best thing, there's lots of different ways to measure this, which is really geeky. And I won't get into all of those things from retention, application, and all that. But I'd like to give your audience and you some tips on how you can remember new information that you're exposed to. And then we'll talk about how to design and deliver those presentations.
Okay.
So when you're exposed to new information, say you're listening to this podcast, one thing you can ask yourself is, what does this new information really mean? And how can I apply it to my own life?
And so it's kind of filter.
That's the filter. And that's a brain hack that allows you to apply your own context to the new information, which triggers your brain to say, oh, I need to remember this. And so it stores in your long-term memory. Otherwise, it literally goes in one ear and out the other. So try to glean how you can apply it and what the meaning is to new information. That's my awesome. Brain hack for you.
Yeah, that's great. It's more active listening.
Active listening, but also thinking about how you can apply it later. That's the trigger that puts it in your long-term memory.
It's
good. An easy tip. And for a presenter, the more you're able to tell stories, the more likely you are to get people's attention. So pop quiz for you, Eric. How long can people pay attention to a presentation? How many minutes?
Me, not much. I would say probably 20 minutes.
The mark for most people is 10 minutes.
Wow.
So we are truly sophisticated cave people still, Eric. Our brain has not matured that much over millions of years, truly. So your
Yeah.
brain, even now, your brain is constantly scanning the environment for survival opportunities and threats. So it's looking for things that you can eat, something that might eat you, something you can mate with, something that might mate with you, and things that are familiar. And your brain will give you permission for about 10 minutes only to focus on something other than scanning the environment for threats and
Wow.
survival opportunities. And so if you're delivering a presentation and you tell a story, that gets the brain to start paying attention. You have 10 minutes to deliver more detailed information after you tell your story, and then forget about it. Your audience's brain are gone. They're scanning the environment. So that's
So
how it
if I
works.
understand what you, and if I understand what you're saying, it means that if I'm giving a presentation, I have to make sure that every 10 minutes something's happening, that I switching to another story or involve the audience. Is that the way it goes?
Exactly. So chunk your presentation down into 10-minute segments.
Mm-hmm.
Kick off each segment with a story that sets the context for what you're going to talk about, the more detailed information, and then do that every 10 minutes. Involve the audience, let them hear from somebody else. And those are brain-friendly ways to make sure that your audience is able to comprehend and remember what you say.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the part is coming in.
Yeah, the other thing is, so another pop quiz for you, Eric Rosenberg. Think about your presentation. How many bullets should you have on one slide?
None, only picture.
Oh, you're the man. That's exactly right. Well, you can use pictures, but if you're also going to use words, don't use any more than a tweet's worth. Because your brain processes each character as a separate image, and we're visual creatures, right? Because our brains are wired to look for threats visually.
Right.
So really great images that set the context for your message with just a little bit of text will increase retention and comprehension by 40%.
Got it. And what is the word you use? Tweet word? What?
Oh, Twitter? No more than a tweet's worth.
On that tweet's worth. Okay, got it. Don't forget, with my accent, if I can understand, anybody can understand.
Got it.
So when you were designing that for others, how would you train people if you're not the one delivering the information, but you're responsible for the information being delivered and being effective?
I teach a lot of people how to do this in a couple ways. One, I have an online course. It's called Mesmerize, the Art of Brain-Friendly Presentations. You can get to it on my website, melissamajors.com. Check it out. I'll give you a promo code you can share with your audience later so they can take it complimentary. Happy to share that with anybody.
Awesome.
But it's a 15-minute course, and it breaks down the design and delivery of brain-friendly presentations. But then I also, I launched my business about a year or so ago, Eric Rosenberg.
I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there.
I know. I can't wait to tell you. One of the products and services that I launched is called Community Keynotes. So I help coach other amateur speakers on how to deliver brain-friendly presentations, but also in a keynote-worthy way. And so I take them through the process of start with the design of your presentation first. And the most important thing to think about in the design is, what do you want your audience to do after they hear you? That's the point. What action do you want them to take? And you use that point to filter out all the content that will make it in your presentation. If it doesn't help your audience get from point A to point B, don't put it in your presentation. And that is the hardest thing for people to do because they have all these ideas they want to cram into their presentation. But you have to be intentional and filter out the stuff that won't help you achieve the point.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you also about the inclusiveness, which I know it's a topic that is dear to you and to me and a lot of people. But in your short bio, you said that you're driving better business outcomes through innovative and inclusive strategic planning. So how does that work?
So let me tell you a quick story. So over the course of my career,
okay, but no more than 10 minutes.
You got it. Oh, you're such a good student. You show off. Over the course of my career, I have been very fortunate to achieve double-digit growth in most of the organizations that I have managed. And the secret is, Eric, I ask a lot of people their opinion. I include all stakeholders, from senior leaders to people down the supply chain to the customers. and blend all of those ideas that I've included into solutions and strategies, which leads to innovation. And so not only over the course of my career have I benefited from being inclusive that leads to innovation. Now there's a lot of research that proves the most innovative, the most inclusive companies are more innovative than others. So for example, there was a study launched by the Boston Consulting Group last year, I think, that did a study over 15 years to prove that companies who are more inclusive produce increased revenue of 40% compared to those who are not over a 15-year span. So there's a business case associated with being inclusive, which again leads to innovation.
Right. And how would you define then inclusiveness? Because when I hear the word inclusiveness, it can mean so many different things. And how do you link that then to the strategic planning in the organization?
Simply put, being inclusive means involving others.
Okay.
It's involving others. It's involving them in decisions. It's involving their perspectives that shape solutions and strategies. It's involving the voice of everyone who should have a say. Now, that's easier said than done, right, Eric? This is a complex thing. But one thing that I do when I'm consulting with companies is I help them gather the voice of all the stakeholders first, aggregate that data into a story that then informs the solutions and the strategies so that we have data-driven strategies versus opinion-driven strategies. And that's the difference.
Wow. It makes me think of other settings where I see so-called leader asking their team, so what do you think about that? And before they have been able to answer, they go, because I think we should do that.
Ah, yes.
So obviously switch off everybody's mind and nobody wants to say anything different.
You got it right. So not too long ago, I was consulting. I'm very fortunate to know and call Janet Trapp-Hagen a friend. She's the president of the Creative Group, global large event management organization based in Chicago. And I was helping her team with the strategic plan. But I noticed throughout the day, she was super quiet. I knew she had an opinion. And she said, Melissa, I'm deliberate about not sharing my opinion until everyone else has shared theirs, because my voice carries more weight in the room simply because of my position. So I listen intently, allow everyone else to share their thoughts, and then aggregate those in my mind and allow them to form my own opinion. But leaders speak last.
Yes. And they eat last as well, according to Simon Sinek.
According to Simon Sinek, they do.
No, you're absolutely right. What I admire with you as well is not only the intellect you bring and the leadership you bring, but in a time where a lot of people are looking for not easiness, but more what I call the fake protection of a large organization, you decided to go on your own. And we're celebrating about a year now, right?
It has been a year.
So can you speak? Because I know there's a lot of people listening to this podcast right now that are thinking, maybe I should go on my own, or maybe I should start my own business. What was the thinking process and what was the trigger point when you say, you know what, now I'm doing it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good, juicy story.
Okay.
So I've been an entrepreneur for years. I've been innovating strategies and education for other people for a really long time. So I got to the point in my career where I knew it was time to take the next step. Either I would move on to another organization to continue to grow, because I refused to let myself get comfortable in a position. And so I knew it was time to take the next step. And I was at a crossroads and I thought, gosh, as being involved in MPI, I was really exposed to these incredible entrepreneurs like you and others who took that leap and they were really living their purpose and their calling. And so I thought, you know what? Why not? I'm going for it. I'm ready for another challenge. This wasn't something that I took a long time to plan out, quite frankly. I didn't have a 10-year plan to transition into going on my own. I just saw the opportunity and I seized it because I never wanted to have any regrets and ask myself, well, what would have happened if I had gone out on my own? Now, I've also been fiscally responsible all my life because I grew up in the investment business. And so I know to have at least 6 months of living expenses saved up. So you have those choices to make. And so making the leap has, one, financially been a really great decision. but the freedom it gives me to help more people beyond the confines of being within an organization, I feel like I am living my own purpose and my own calling now. So it's been wonderful. I love it. Now, it's scary as hell, Eric, right? It's
Yes.
scary because you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from. I got a family to take care of, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. I encourage anybody who's thinking about it, just, weigh your pros and cons. Call me, call Eric, get some guidance and advice as you're considering it, but go for it. Life is short. You only get one life to live, and I'm just going to live it to the fullest. And so that helped me take the leap.
That's awesome. So going back to that moment, so you're taking the leap, and now you're not surrounded by 67 people in an office anymore. You're on your own. You're speaking to the potential customer, to your prospect, and then you're going to the supermarket to buy the necessities for the house and the office. What are the moments that you remember in the first months that you thought, "Oh my God, I knew it was going to be hard, but I was not imagining that." What is that?
Yeah. So it wasn't in the first couple months because I was really fortunate that several of my former employers, when they found out I was a free agent, I got some business immediately. It was like 9 months into the gig toward the holidays when everything dried up.
Mm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Start pulling from that savings account, right, to supplement income and things like that. And I had that moment, what have I done? Is this a sustainable business? Can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. It was in that moment, I had a couple of people I admire. I didn't ask them for their advice. They just proactively reached out and said, the work that you're doing is important. Continue to do it. And it was just getting that sort of encouragement from people without soliciting it. It just gave me the fuel to continue to push on. Once the new year rolled over, then business started coming back in. And so I think some of those lessons learned in first year is you've got to plan. There are going to be some lulls in the business, especially around the holidays.
Right.
I also learned you have to diversify your income.
Mm.
So I've continued to launch and test out new products, new services, and ideas to diversify income stream. I have online courses, I have keynote speaking. I now have scaled up with independent contractors. I'm not going to hire employees anytime soon, but I can scale up my business with independent contractors who can take over some of the work that I might not be great at, but still need to be done to support a client.
Mm-hmm.
And then I charge a fee and add a little haircut on top of it. And so I still have that income coming in and other people are making money as well. So again, you just have to be creative and diversify. And that's gotten me through.
Very good. You said people reach out to you spontaneously. Parallel to that, have you also built for yourself a kind of board of advisors, a group of people, mentors? And if apparently yes, so
I'm looking at one of them.
Great pleasure. How do you decide on that? How often are you reaching out to those advisors, any mentor, so that people listening now can learn from you?
You have to have your own personal board of directors, not only for advice on how to build a business, but also you need influencers that can speak for you on your behalf when you're not in the room. It's critical to be able to extend your reach and your brand through others. And so I, over the course of this year, have met so many amazing people I never would have met if I hadn't been on my own. I don't have a formal board meeting and things like that. It's very informal, but I know when I have a question, I have certain people that I can reach out to get guidance and mentorship like you and others. And I would say that personal board of directors is probably 30 people deep here for me. Now, I also recently, and this will launch in a couple of weeks, but I'll give you guys a quick heads up. I joined a partnership with 4 other women, and we are called the 5 Points of Light. And it's 5 industry leaders who have come together to capitalize on collaboration versus competition.
Fabulous.
And pool our power together to help support each other and each other's extended network. And so they are my very close knit of advisors that every Friday we meet to talk about business, to find out how each other's doing. And that too has helped me get through some of the hard times, especially right now with the pandemic. The bright point in my week, other than making sure, knowing that I have everything that I need to take care of my kids and myself, and we're all healthy, and I'm grateful for that. The bright point is that meeting with those other 4 women where we can just let our hair down, talk about the good, bad, and the ugly in a safe place. And so I encourage everybody to have those sorts of people around you. It's so important.
That's awesome. We're going to speak, obviously, of what's going on in the world right now. What I take from what you just said is, regardless of if there is a crisis or not, but as an entrepreneur, having your own business, you're tapping into your own network. You have regular meetings with people that whose advice you are relying on, and also advising yourself. So you have this kind of process in place so that you don't stay alone. And that's one of the things that I'm always insisting when I'm speaking with somebody who's leaving a large organization to start on their own. Say, get out at least 2-3 times a week, but get out, see other people, have a schedule that you force yourself to wake up, to get ready to work, maybe go in another room, or if you don't have another room, go out of the house and come back. But really make it as a systematic plan when you're starting on your own. So that's something that resonate with you?
Absolutely. I mean, I am the youngest of 9 kids, Eric.
Wow.
So I came from a large family. We're all really, really tight. So working at different organizations, I always found that family unit with the people around me. Transitioning from being in an organization to being on my own was hard because I didn't have that family unit. So I thrive when connecting with other people. I think we all do, but it's an essential for successful entrepreneurs to make sure you've got those connections and you're learning lessons from other people without you're gaining wisdom from other people's failures and successes without, hitting your own head against a wall. Yeah. And so it's important just for your own professional development and social connection. So you talk about brain friendly. So our brains are, as humans, being socially connected to others, and that human connection is as important as food, shelter, water.
It's as important as, sorry?
It's as important as food, shelter, water.
Okay.
Social connection.
Yeah.
People die of loneliness. I mean, there's mounting research that proves that people who are alone and lonely, their health, they aren't nearly as healthy, and the mortality rates are higher. Mm-hmm. And so your brain and your brain function also needs social connection. So don't forget that, even though you're working on your own as an entrepreneur. It's very important.
I think that's an essential part that is unfortunately not spoken about enough. That's the mental health aspect.
Yep.
To be on your own, to maybe have to face depression or doubt, and having nobody to turn to. Obviously, when you're aware of it, that's the first step to getting help or getting support, or finding yourself into a group or a network, which is very helping as well.
It is. And mental health is so important, and it is a critical aspect, not only to the success of your business, but for a healthy lifestyle and healthy mind. I'm fortunate to live in Dallas, Texas. And the Brain Performance Institute is based here in Dallas. And the founder, Dr. Sandy Chapman, has proven a way to help people maintain their mental edge and improve their mental capacity and function. And there are just a couple things you can do every day to do this. And the reason why I try to share this message as much as possible, Eric, is because I know that in 20, 30 years, I'm going to be surrounded by people that I love. I want to be able to remember those people. And so many of us, especially in this industry, are so stressed. And Sandy has proven that stress on the brain is as damaging as smoking is to the lungs.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How did he prove that? I mean, I tend to believe it, but intuitively, but how did he prove that?
Yeah, Dr. Sandy Chapman, she's got tons of research. Go to the Dallas Brain Performance Institute in Dallas. They have tons of the research published out there. You can check it out. But
Wow.
she's proven that. But she's also proven a way to strengthen and build resilience against stress. Number one, take 5 brain breaks a day. And what that means is just for 5 minutes, unplug, no stimulation, no guided meditation, just quiet and breathe 5 times a day. The second thing she recommends doing is connect at least 3 times a day, have a meaningful conversation with another human being. So often our conversations are transactional. Did you get the project done? Did you pick up the kids from soccer? Did you go to the grocery store? These transactional conversations. But a meaningful social connection with another human being, meaningful conversation 3 times a day will help increase your brain function. And then here's the third thing. Think innovative thoughts at least 7 times a day.
What?
So ask yourself, how
7
can I
times
do,
a day?
7 times a day. That's easy. Just ask yourself, how can I do this differently? How can I do this even better? That causes your brain to create these new, I'm going to geek out on you for just a moment. It causes your brain to create new neural pathways, which strengthens your brain capacity. And so those are things that if you do daily, you can increase your brain function and maintain your mental edge. This works. Dr. Sandy Chapman works with, who are those guys? Navy SEALs who are facing PTSD and they're in the field. They've got to have mental clarity.
Yeah.
After working with them for 2 to 3 days and they do these exercises, they get their mental function back. And so if they can do it, so can we. And it's incredibly important, especially for the people in the events industry, because
So you said
so stressed out.
Break, 5 minutes break.
5 brain breaks a day for 5 minutes, no stimulation, just breathing.
Right.
3 meaningful conversations with another human being, and then 7 innovative thoughts every day.
5, 3, 7.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now we are, as you mentioned earlier on, in a very interesting time. Our industry is totally frontline with what's going on. It is obviously your first crisis with your business, and it is not the first crisis through which you're going in your professional life. So, first of all, what do you remember from previous crises, and can you maybe share 1 or 2 examples of what happened and what you did?
Yeah, so I was in the middle of the investment business when the market tanked in 2008. And it was so scary because everybody's, all of my customers, my own assets just withered up to practically nothing. And watching, your nest egg just vanish, because of the market tank was incredibly scary. I was pretty young then, so I felt resilient enough to ride it out, but my job was in jeopardy. We were laying people off. It was very, very scary. And I remember thinking, and I have asked myself this question ever since when I'm faced with disappointment, is what is the leadership lesson in this? We are smack dab right now, Eric, a major leadership lesson, whether you are watching leaders make great decisions or bad ones. If you ask yourself that question, what is the leadership lesson in this? It pivots something that could make you feel like a victim into something that you can use to make yourself a better leader. So I encourage everybody to ask themselves that question. And I'm asking myself that question right now. What is the leadership lesson in this? I'm learning a lot about my business, how to build a more stable business that is resilient in times of ups and downs. And I think I'm so grateful that I diversified my income stream because I have virtual products that are now thriving in this time. Whereas all of my keynote speaking business and education business for in-person events has dried up. So I'm finding balance there. And I'm grateful for the lessons. And so there's a lot of lessons that we should be learning right now so we can be better the next time a crisis happens.
Very good point. And in the last weeks, if I may ask you, when you see this pandemic growing and everything being canceled one after the other, what are the first action you took?
We were on vacation at Disney World when it really started getting bad. So I was like Batman with my utility belt, and I had hand sanitizer, alcohol wipes. I mean, I was wiping everything. So the first thing I was doing was taking care of the people who were requiring me to take care of them the most, my kids. and my family.
Yeah.
And then once we got back home, everybody's healthy. Then I needed to start focusing on my business. But Eric didn't have time because I have kids at home and juggling homeschooling when my husband, he's a firefighter and he worked for FEMA. So he's
Oh,
gone
wow.
right now most of the time. So just that balance. And so I have deliberately had to pause on a lot of my business activities to prioritize focusing on my family.
Mm-hmm.
And let some of that passive revenue continue to come in. Again,
Mm-hmm.
grateful for
Yeah.
the wisdom to diversify my business. And so I just had to prioritize better than I ever have before. But number one thing, taking care of the people who rely on me the most.
That's a very good point. I'd like to add one point that I've learned so far, and you reminded me of that, what you just said. We now realize that the people that are in the front line, the first responder, the firefighters, the law enforcement, the nurse, the doctors, are definitely much more important than influencers and taking selfies on social media.
Absolutely. And I have to hold it down at home so my husband can be out doing what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yes.
feel like I've got to help support him as well. He has to know when he's in the field that everything at home is taken care of. And so that just comes with prioritizing. And I'm so grateful for what he does. And I'll do
Yeah.
whatever I
And
can
so
to
are
help
we.
support him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It's very interesting. Now, I'd like to end the conversation by trying to focus on mine, as you said, Ida, with a brain-friendly information about what's coming next. We all know that's going to end at some stage, and we all know that it's not going to be a switch off, switch on immediately. We all know that our industry has been very much affected, and that also the entire world now realize how crucial what we're doing is for the world. We always say, when we meet, we change the world, and that's the reality. So for you as an entrepreneur owning your own business, what are you looking at? What advice would you give to a listener that also are business owners for the future?
The advice I would give everyone is just be careful not to make long-term decisions based on a short-term situation. This situation, this too will pass. It will. And I have faith, Eric, that when we get through this, gosh, we're going to be much better humans than we were before. I'm seeing it in so many different ways, from families hanging out in their front yards where you never saw them before, taking walks together and doing things for people just out of the kindness of their heart. That they're in it. And everybody around the globe is fighting this common enemy, and the enemy's not a person. Right. It's a disease. And in a weird way, it's creating more belonging than I've ever seen before. When we get past this, our industry, I believe, will thrive because we now appreciate the human connection of getting people together more than we ever did before. Now, I'm a numbers girl. When it comes to business results, show me the numbers. And as an industry, we have really struggled proving the value of face-to-face events. I mean, there's some metrics, some proof out there, but we have a hard time articulating it.
Agree.
When this is all said and done, there's going to be no question how important it is to get people together. And so I'm looking forward to that day.
That's awesome. I was watching a meme recently. There's a conversation between two people. The first one goes, "Hello," and the other one answer, "Where are you?" And then he goes, "That is such a 2019 question."
It sure is. That's so yesterday.
Melissa, thank you. Before we end this conversation today, you said you had a promo code for listener, and how also precise how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on all the different channels I'm out there, but the best way to find me is go to melissamajors.com, and I have links to my online courses. I'll create a promo code called BRAIN, just for
Okay.
your listeners, Eric. So anybody that uses the promo code BRAIN can take the Mesmerize course complimentary. Thanks to you.
Wonderful.
And I also offer complimentary advice for anybody who's looking to innovate their education strategy to create a better outcomes-based inclusion strategy and innovate their events. Just reach out, throw some time on my calendar. I'd love to help you. That's what we do best in this industry, is helping each other. So book some time with me. It's been a
Awesome.
pleasure chatting with you this morning, Eric
Thank you
Rosenberg. Thank you for
so much.
involving me.
Thank you very much, Melissa Major. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the listening as much as I did. Melissa, have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Cheers.
I hope you also enjoy listening to Melissa Majors. I remember several points of what she said. The first one is that leaders speak last. And that's a very important point, I think, to remember. And three things that she said, and I remember that with the 5-3-7. So it's 5 times per day, have a 5-minute break and breathing, just breathing, no other distraction, no guided meditation, or no tools or electronic tools for sure. So 5 times a day, 5 minutes of breathing. 3 times a day, having meaningful conversation with other human beings. And 7 times a day, thinking while you're doing something, how can I do this in a different way? So 5-3-7. Thank you again, Melissa, for sharing your knowledge.